Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to Raising Excellence, the most important hour of your week. Hello, I'm Michael, the MC and Opportunity Ambassador for today's show. And today's show's title is Goodbye, Kali Yuga. Hello, Golden Age. We've got good news. With me today are two of my favorite co-hosts, and we've got a special guest that's going to enlighten us to all the good news. But let me start with Agnieszka and our special guest, Red, the alchemist, I guess.
Hi, my name is Agnieszka, and this is Red One-Eye, the alchemist that we have on today's show, who's going to be talking about golden ages, the ages, and how we can get out of this age of darkness.
And of course, Dennis, our freedom facilitator, is joining us from the darkness of Germany.
Greetings and blessed love, everybody. And the darkness has indeed vanished because it must have been like 25 degrees Celsius today, bright sunshine, primavera, how you call that again? Spring. Frühling, springtime. Yeah, man. Greetings, everybody.
Lovely. Nice. All right, so let's talk about this title. The Kali Yuga is behind us, and the golden age is in front of us. Or are we in the golden age already? Where are we at?
Basically, we just finished the Kali Yuga, which was a dark age, and now we're just crossing into the golden age. Actually, these two ages merge into each other. They just don't stop and one starts. They kind of trickle into each other. So one ends and then the other one starts. So right now we are actually in the trickle beginning of the golden age, basically, and tail end of the Kali Yuga.
And Red, let's just to give our audience a little bit of background on you, Red. Can you tell us a little bit about your story, where you come from, and how you know so much about this?
Well, I'll try not go very deep because it's a very deep story when we start trying to figure out who I am. But basically, I was born in Kenya. I was raised there for 20 years, and I moved to the United States for studies. Stayed there for 23 years. I was basically in the empirical medicine, whereby I practiced just what you call the Rockefeller medicine. And around 2016, I quit that, and I decided I want to pursue my spiritual path. My spiritual path, which was basically becoming a pure alchemist, which means you're a 360-degree alchemist. You practice 360-degree magic, which is the highest form of magic that is known to mankind at this point in time.
So how do you know so much about the Yugas?
How do I know about the Yugas? Basically, initially it started about reading. I was reading a lot, but eventually everything else comes from downloads, because I'm gifted to be able to divine and download from the sun divinely. So I can be able to tap into records, or I can be able to bring down information if I do need so, or if we do need so.
Ask him something. Do it. Don't just sit there.
So, well, I guess what was that transition that you had between practicing medicine in the United States and then deciding to go on that spiritual path? Was there a particular thing that happened?
Well, after 15 years of practicing medicine in emergency room, intensive care, renal, and the whole 900 yards, I saw a lot of inconsistencies, and basically medicine is geared towards keeping you more ill so that you can pay more money into the system so that you can buy drugs. And I was literally just a drug pusher, and I did not really enjoy it. It became more of a paycheck more than helping human beings. And when that became a paycheck, then I drew the line and decided, like, I'm gonna quit. At that point in time, I'd started reading on the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and that's how my spiritual awakening and journey started beginning, as, which included things like sun gazing, and I also immersed myself in a lot of reading from, I mean, I'm talking about books that date back into 10,000 BC, reading the Egyptian papyrus. So I went into a lot of what you call gnosis, and that's how I ended up leaving empirical medicine, or what was a regular practice, and moving into my spiritual practice.
Wonderful.
How
So,
did you? So
go ahead.
how did you get to understand that we are into this time of transition between the yugas right now? Because I feel, as far as I remember, like if you go to Hinduism, then their understanding of the Kali Yuga and of the ending of such is not, would not be at this point of time. And there's different traditions and different religions which kind of interpret or even give it different names, the ages that we're in. How did you reach the particular conclusion that we right now are in this period of transition? Is that also something that you got from the books and from the studying you did, or is that something that came to you in different ways?
Very good question. Basically, what happened is, as I went down the books and I kept on studying, and see, you have to be very expansive in what you don't know, because what we base our knowledge on is what we've been told and what we know. So a lot of people just go by the Hindus say this, or who say this and who say that. But what about what they don't know? And that's what really tickled me, because then there's a couple of things which were missing from the Kali Yugas and how the Hindus explain it. And actually, if you look at the Kali Yugas, they're what is called the procession of the earth, basically, whereby there's a little bit of a wobble on the earth, and you can do a calculation and you can actually get the exact number of years. How I came to decipher that we're moving into from one Kali Yuga into the golden age is, one is by reading, and the other one is also by downloading and also communicating divinely. And also, if you just look at what is playing out, you can basically tell we are moving from one age to the other. If you look at a lot of the scripts, especially a script like the Bible, which holds a lot of truths, although there's a lot of things which have been changed, it holds a lot of truths. And you'll see that even during the time of Jesus, he said we're going to go into a new age. The new age basically means like when time stops and time restarts. If you calculate everything, if you do the Mayan calendar, the Julian calendar, and go back and look at the Roman calendar and try and quantify all these things, you'll see that that age actually was ending between around, I'll say 2013, 2015, going through to this period of time, and we are starting the new golden age. So it's a matter of just being able to calculate. Unfortunately, I cannot be able to do it right here, but if you go and look at the procession of the ages and how the wobble is, you can be able to calculate those numbers mathematically, and then you can also start correlating events that are taking place from what was predicted in the past, and that will tell you that we're moving into a new age. Not only that, is I know very well from first-hand experience that the Christ consciousness, for sure, 100%, that came down or is still here right now from last year. Last year, we started having a bigger presence of the Christ consciousness, which is downloading on us right now, which is continuing right now. And that is one of the biggest things that was talked about during the new golden age, basically.
Yeah, and I can support his research with my own research. I mean, when I researched the yugas, I similarly came across the lie of the large numbers. Like, that struck me as a lie right away. So I had to dig deeper, and I did find the calculations that he's talking about. And it did, my conclusions from the research of the yugas was the same, that the numbers are inflated. They're basically putting all these 400,000 years between the yugas in order to make us think that we're going to be in Kali Yuga in the darkness for much longer. And it really, like on an intuitive level, it feels like propaganda. When you start digging into it, the books do not support it. And there are books throughout the world. It's not just the Hindu books, but you can read the Mayan books and you can read, African books. And there are different types of books, but they all have the same age.
Correct.
The same end of age.
Yeah, they kind of correlate each other. They tie into everything together. So the key thing is, if you just take time and look at the calculations of the procession of the ages, then you'll be able to tell that the 432,000 years we're talking about, that's a little bit of a stretch. It goes to about maybe, from my calculations, I don't know what you got, about 26,000 years into a whole
26,000 years
into a procession of a cycle.
Yeah.
So what we talked about a little bit in the kind of the teaser video was talking about the problem of people just having a lack of awareness at the moment, and certainly, for a lot of people, they're seeing that just in this past year, there's been a great deal of restrictions put on people's freedoms, and so it seems like to a lot of people that the darkness is just starting, that the tyranny and the totalitarianism and dictatorships are essentially just growing into fruition at this point. What are your thoughts on, what do we tell people to get them to understand that this is actually the end of the bad stuff and the beginning of the good stuff?
Very, very, very good question. Very potent. Basically, the most important thing people have to do is start thinking, because that's where we've regressed in thinking. And if you look at what Nikola Tesla said, humanity regressed when we stopped thinking. And why are people in mind control right now? Why are people all being controlled? Because they don't think. I mean, we stopped thinking and we've given our control to the media, television. Tell a lie to the vision. Television is nothing but secondhand information. So you watch something someone has written down and you consume it as first-hand information, but it's only second-hand information. We know, if that. Yeah. We know very well first-hand information comes from our eyes, nose, ears, touching, feeling, all your six senses. That's first-hand information. But if you look at everything that is being said to us, it's second-hand information. So if you go down and you'll see that they've used propaganda tools very well, and the first propaganda tool was a radio,
I didn't agree with you there.
It was actually one of the first propaganda tools.
Newspaper. When I looked into it, the ancient plays like what's that called? Odyssey and those were propaganda pieces.
Yes.
Once you read it line by line,
those are
you
propaganda.
See the propaganda inside
Modern
the Odyssey
propaganda.
and the what's the other one? Iliad.
Modern propaganda, like the modern propaganda from about 1918 when the radio.
No, Iliad was written 2,000 years ago. Before Christ.
No, I'm talking about modern propaganda.
Oh yeah. The
modern propaganda starts.
But I thought it was so interesting that they were using propaganda on us back in the ancient Greek times.
Yeah, that's
right. Listen to your king. Listen to your king. Stuff like that. Repeated so many verses, like LP in your brain.
That's why it's called acting. It's not really real. They're acting. So. But it started from basically radio was one of the biggest propaganda tools
in
modern era. Then they moved to the television, and now they've moved to the cell phone, which is even more potent, more dangerous, because that one is connected to you right here and actually connected to your brain. So what human beings have lost is the ability to think. We've given our thinking to government, which means government, govern your mind. Govern, control, meant your mind. So we've given these guys all our power and we've stopped thinking. And just for an example, is if you look at the COVID-19 situation, you're told to wear a mask, go into a restaurant, take off your mask, go in, eat food for 2 hours, put on your mask and leave. You ask yourself, what is COVID within that 2 hours you're eating? So
it's very polite.
It
doesn't interrupt you while it'll just infect you after the meal. So you have to put your mask on really fast.
Correct, or you get in a plane, you walk through the airport in a mask, then you get in a plane and they serve you food and you eat for 2 hours or 1 hour without a mask, and then you put
As
on your
long as
mask.
you have a bowl of water, you can just drink the whole time.
Exactly. Or pull down your mask, smoke a cigarette, put it back on. So very simple key things where we can think through. We're not thinking just because we've been told to do something in a certain way, or we've been forced to do it out of fear, then people are doing it. And if you look at it right now, you brought a very key point that there's a lot of our rights being taken away. They're not forcefully being taken away right now.
For giving them up.
We're giving them up. I mean, these guys are writing bills, and if you look at the HR 666 bill, which was actually proposed by the Democrats last year, that was just being passed. Nobody
What did
questioned.
you call them? Democrats?
Democrats. I call them
Democrats.
Yes, and there's a reason why I call them that. So basically, we're letting our rights go away. And my main question I ask, I even asked Ineshka is, what's your name? And she'll tell me her name, but I ask, who are you? And she'll tell me whatever it is. But the I am part is what we're forgetting. The true part of us is what we're forgetting, and that's what is being taken away. Our consciousness is being taken away.
So do you see that I am part, that consciousness, is something related to the thinking or the critical thinking that you've been hinting at, that people are missing out or are not taking advantage of or not utilizing, or is that something which is beyond the thinking?
Absolutely, it's you're dead right. It's that is tied in with your thinking. When you start thinking about the I am, you're thinking about not the person who was given a name, a religion, a country, and a zip code, but you're thinking about your true self. You see, you're thinking about who you are, and this goes into the spiritual part. There's a spiritual part and there's a material part. That's how the ego is split. And most people are focusing on the material aspect of the ego and not the spiritual aspect of the ego. And material aspect of the ego just tells you follow the material things, eat, sleep, and acquire material things. But when you incorporate the spiritual part of the ego, then you're able to be focused spiritually and start focusing on more spiritual stuff. Doesn't mean that you're not living in a material world, but now you start living as a 5-dimensional being or a spiritual being experiencing a material world. And then now you start thinking, but thinking is the most important thing that anyone can do, because God thought about everything. He thought. That's why in ancient Egypt, the god was called Thought, because he thought about everything. Now, if thinking is so important, I usually ask my cohorts is, how many hours do you take in a day to sit down and think? Because thinking is the beginning of creation. That's what you do before you create anything. Before you guys started this podcast, I saw you guys thinking of how to organize it. That's thought right there. So thinking is the beginning of everything. But they have taken that away with mind control so that you don't think. And when you can't think, you can't think straight. You can just follow. So we've lost that aspect of thinking, and we're just followers right now. But if human beings go back to thinking, then they'll be able to see a lot of these lies that these people are putting out there, and we can be able to change the narrative.
It's always baffled me how some people can see it right off the bat, like they have never been fooled by this propaganda. Mm-hmm. And some people are like, oh, what do you mean? Mm-hmm. What do you mean? What's wrong with it? Like they can't, I don't know if I have like a truth meter that's really, really active or mm-hmm. what, but like I can tell a lie if it's presented to me.
Mm-hmm. It's just a degree of ignorance that people have chosen to be comfortable with. Most people will watch TV. The saddest thing I ever saw was I talked to a scientist who has finished school, but he doesn't know who Nikola Tesla is. That's how sad our education system is. You see, the greatest scientist that ever lived, a biologist who is working as a biologist, doesn't know who he is. That's how we've been programmed, and we've been put into this cocoon and force-fed what we need to know.
Selective information.
Selective information, exactly.
We've we've covered this before in some of our previous shows, but the idea of the use of senses as being, our connection to understanding the reality that's outside of us. But there's a predominance of people that believe that we only have five senses, and there's many more senses, and certainly there are people that have a much better understanding of those different senses that that we should be relying on to kind of give us some indication of what our potential is in regard to senses. But what are your thoughts in regard to how many senses there are? How do you facilitate people using their senses to get in touch with a better understanding of reality?
Very, 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 very key. You brought up two very key points right there. The first one is the senses, and the other one is thinking. Thinking is very independent, because even right now we are thinking. We can never stop thinking. When we stop thinking, then life will stop existing, because thinking is creation. So every time we think, we are creating. That's why they say thoughts are things. The other one you're talking about was sorry, remind me.
The idea of the more senses and people
being
able to utilize them.
Yeah, sorry. As far as senses goes, we probably have more than 100 senses within us. More than 100. I mean, see, we believe that our five senses is everything, but within us is a whole world. It's a whole different world. But how many of us tap into that world inside? We're just used to our vision and our five senses outside. How about the inside world? In alchemy, they say what as above, so below, and as within, so without. So everything without is inside you, and everything above is within you. So this is where it comes to a very key point, that there's something called a pineal gland, or the third eye. This is the biggest fight ever, and that's why you see all these democrats and all these dark entities fighting humanity, because they don't want us to open up our pineal gland. Because when you open your pineal gland, it's the greatest transducer and the greatest transponder. So you can be able to open up your other senses, clairvoyance, clairaudience, telekinesis, and a great more aspect of things. Also, we only see this much of the light spectrum, the rainbow colors, but the light spectrum is very, very expansive. So when you open up your pineal gland and start tapping into these senses, then you can be able to do other different things. And this is part of what I did. I went through a whole spiritual transformation, and I was able to open up my pineal gland. And that is what really caused problems with me and basically the United States government, because then I can start divining, and they can start downloading, and they start getting information that they don't want me to know, and they don't want you to know.
Yeah, it's interesting because most of the listeners of this show would be very familiar with the natural law and, as within, so without, that's the people that we're actually broadcasting to are pretty
aware of that. So it's just basic. So if people can practice more about, because this body is a machine. It's the most intricate machine ever created. But we've used it we don't use it the way it's supposed to be used.
Tell us about your experiments with breatharianism.
Breatharianism?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, breatharianism is, I call it being a hydrogen being, because it's a little bit complicated, because this is when you bite an apple and leave it in the open, what happens? It starts rotting, right? Oxidizing, and which is just aging, oxidizing, aging, rotting, the same thing. It happens the same thing when you bite an apple and it goes in your stomach, because you start oxidizing. Now think about it, when you eat a lot of food, you want water. Water has oxygen content, so that's H2O. But if you don't eat a lot of food, or if you regress your eating, you go into a state of inertia, then you convert from an oxygen breathing being into a hydrogen breathing being, because now you don't require oxygen to burn your food. And actually, the stomach was not meant to store food. It was meant to store gas. It's supposed to be a hydrogen tank, basically. So this goes into a lot of things. If you think about it, you're made of carbon and hydrogen. The sun is made of carbon and hydrogen. The most potent bomb is hydrogen bomb, hydrogen fuel cells. We measure fluids and everything in the chemical laboratory by pH. What does pH stand for? Potential hydrogen. You see? But when they tell you about oxygen, they tell you oxygen is more by mass. They don't tell you by volume. And hydrogen is actually missing in that equation. Yet hydrogen covers the entire universe, and everything is made of hydrogen. So how I came to be a breatharian is I started practicing something called Shivambu, which is basically urine therapy. And that kind of helped me, because when you're in your mother's womb, what are you doing? You're just looping your urine continuously, because that's all you're doing, looping your urine. And urine was actually called the philosopher's stone.
What does it mean, looping your urine?
Looping your urine means you just swallowing your urine and just peeing and swallowing, peeing and swallowing.
Okay.
That's what a baby does in the womb, basically. So urine was called actually the philosopher's stone by alchemists, because it was sold, it was used to make soap, it was used to, even to this day, they use it to make medication, female hot flash medications that's made out of pregnant male urine. Urecoline they use in hospital, that's urine. So I use that as a way to cleanse myself and get my pineal gland clean. On top of that, I did other things like sun gazing. There's a whole bunch of things I touched on to get myself to this point.
Sorry, power issues.
What were some other techniques you used to clean your pineal gland besides the urine therapy?
No, I stopped using fluoride toothpaste. I drink structured water.
What do you mean by structured water?
Structured water is, spring water is structured because it runs through the mountains and it runs through the rocks, so it's structured. So you can structure your water by just putting a magnet north and south and twirling it and making a vortex and running the water through it. Is structured because you want your thoughts structured are much better. If you have structured thoughts, you're thinking straight. So when you drink, even ocean water is structured. Sometimes when you sit by the ocean and you hear the waves crashing and your mind settles, is because the structuring of your mind. So structured water is very beautiful for part of the clean of the pineal gland.
And what else?
There's a barrage of stuff. Fasting is very key, because fasting is a reset of your body. So if you have to clean your body and cleanse your body, you just go into a fast. So I started fasting. So I went into a 21-day dry fast, and then I extended it into. And
by dry fast, you mean no water?
It was no water, no food.
But you were drinking.
But actually,
urine?
no. Yes, I was drinking urine. Then I alternated because I went into coconut water because I was still a beginner. So I went into coconut water, then I dropped coconut water. I was trying different things. Then I went into a water fast. Then at one point I stopped completely eating, and I was just staying in the sun for 8 hours and just absorbing the sun. Because if you think about it, an animal eats grass. Grass gets its nutrients from the sun. So I cut out all that up, and I ended up becoming into a state of inertia, or becoming a hydrogen being. Now, sorry about this, but see, this is very key for people to understand, is that your digestive system uses about 70% of your energy. So when you stop eating and stop storing too much food for digestion, all that energy is transferred back here. And if your pineal gland is open, then that's how the genie is open. Then you remember Aladdin, the lamp and the genie, you get enlightenment. That's how basically it works. So you're transferring energy from here to here.
Cool.
So going back to sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was just going to say there's a clinic in Texas that was treating cancer patients that they basically were terminal cancer patients, and I think it's called the Brzezinski Clinic.
Yes.
I can't remember the guy's name, but he was a Polish doctor that came to the United States, and really it was an extract of the urine that they were basically giving to the patients, and that was curing people of cancer.
No,
So there's definitely something about
their
urine.
own urine?
yes.
I'm not sure if it was their own urine or an extract from urine that they were getting, but nevertheless, it had some tie in there.
Because
Yeah.
remember when we were
Go
talking,
ahead.
just 1 second, Dennis, I just want to finish just 1 second. When we were talking to the other breatharian who was supposed to be on our show but didn't come, he said that whenever there's something wrong with your body, your urine will have the cure for it, the solution for it. And if you drink it, it'll solve like depression or all sorts of ailments.
Yeah, basically they call urine the cure all. See, urine, your morning urine contains something called stem cells, which come from your agenesis cells, which are right above your pelvis. Because what happens is during the day, when you're under the sun, you absorb the sunlight, you produce serotonin, which is a happy hormone. That's what keeps you happy. That's why you see people in Alaska not happy because they're not getting enough serotonin. And at night, serotonin converts into melatonin. Now, melatonin is what actually cleans your system when you're sleeping from the free radicals and free radicals that are produced from eating. And when that is happening, also stem cells are used. Now, those stem cells in the morning when you wake up, they just release into your urine because you're not asleep and they're not going to be used. Doesn't mean they're not good. It just means they're not going to be used because you're awake. So if you do chug those down, you're actually putting back stem cells that were there when you were actually being created, and those will actually help you. Instead of doing what they're doing with embryonic stem cells, you just use your own stem cells.
Yeah, and urine therapy has been around for ages, as far as my little studies go, and like even my own family, there, Mike, you mentioned cancer, but there's syphilis, there's other sicknesses that have been, successfully addressed and cured with that kind of therapy alone.
With drinking urine or applying urine?
Drinking. There's a book by a man, I think he's John Wathright. Don't quote me on that, but he wrote a treatise on urine, and he actually moved, I think, to India, and he cured so many diseases. I mean, we're talking all kinds of diseases using urine. And urine has been used. It was called Shivambu in India. It was used in ancient Egypt, which we're talking about thousands and thousands of years ago. So it's something which has been there for a long time. In ancient Rome, they actually taxed urine. If you pee, you are taxed, because urine was used to create soap, was used to create gunpowder. Urine is magical. It's been used to do so many things. And actually, right now, your urine and your feces are more expensive than your food, because urine and feces is what make your methane gas that you use to cook. And methane is more expensive than the food you eat, basically. So you have diversional toilets where they divert your urine and take that urine and they go process it and sell it back to you, when you can just use it.
Your body really is a distillery, so that's distilled. You distill it; it's distilled for you. So that's how your body works. And Agnieszka, you mentioned the antidote that the other friend you mentioned was pointing out. And there is even if you get stung by poisonous animals or so, like within seconds, one of the things to do is actually to get the antidote, or to get like a minute dose of that poison through your urine. And if you reintroduce that into the system, then that actually that can function as an I don't know the English word for it, like
as an antidote, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you're very true on that. I've seen that. Even if you have a burn, or if you're in the forest and something happens to you, just pee on it. Just put urine on your burn, or a bee sting. That's how urine has actually properties for anticholinergic properties. It has actually anticoagulating properties. So if you're bleeding and you pee on urine, or you put urine on a bleeding wound, it'll stop bleeding because it has coagulating properties. So
Models
urine
use it
has a
for
lot.
for their
Man,
face. Models, they use it for
yes,
their face
that's
because
true.
get rid of wrinkles.
Yeah, they carry it in small containers. Those little containers you see them carrying, that's urine. They use it to brush their teeth. They use it to, I mean, one time I had an infection in my eye and they put it in my eye and it cured. Now, the cool thing is about the longer you age your urine, the stronger it becomes because urine is nothing but nitrogen and hydrogen. And after the third day, the nitrogen drops off because of the covalent bonds. It doesn't hold too long. So you remain with hydrogen. Remember, I was talking about hydrogen? Hydrogen is the most important element out there, but they just don't tell us. They don't want us to know because once we know, it breaks open so many things from climate change to everything else. That's why they don't want people having hydrogen fuel cells, which produce clean water to drink, you know?
You
So,
know,
if you think about hydrogen, if it exists in everything in the entire universe, the Holy Spirit, they say, it exists in everything in the entire universe. So you can actually equate those two and say hydrogen, Holy Spirit is the same thing. Because what I tell people is when you're being born, what goes into you? What goes into you is hydrogen. That's what starts the engine. And when you're dying, that's the last thing that leaves. The Holy Spirit leaves you, hydrogen leaves you, and that's how you stop taking breath. And that's why breath is the most important thing that a human being can preserve.
we didn't plan for that, but the last few minutes we talked about the theme of urine and urine therapy, and that gives the title of the show a whole different meaning, isn't it?
Yes. Sorry about that.
No, I think it's highly interesting.
Yeah, we'll go back to the possession.
I
So
wanted.
hang on, because one thing we really wanted to touch on this, and I don't know if we really talked about it very much. It's only 3.5 years left for Kali Yuga. We cannot talk about it, but then we got distracted.
We never actually
Actually,
defined Kali Yuga. Maybe we should do that at this point of the show.
define Kali Yuga. That's kind of a it's kind of a tough definition, but it's an age where it's linked to a lot of dark forces, where the dark forces kind of dominate. That's why you saw a lot of dark forces dominating in that Yuga. But the golden age, the light forces take over. See, the war we are fighting is between dark and light. And we use lights. So we are light beings. So we are on the light team. But the dark forces who have been dominating, that's why they have been dominating politics and everything else, they have been running that age basically. So when that age ends, then the new age comes, the golden age. That's the age that the Christ consciousness comes back and basically people uplift their thinking. So it's a little bit hard to explain it, but on a nutshell, it's just Kali Yugas are basically ages where the sun affects us in a different way, and the distance from the sun to that Kali Yuga will also affect us because the distance from the sun to us affects us. So like the Kali Yuga we just left was very far from the sun. So that's why the dark forces were able to dominate it, basically.
But now, in 3 years.
But now since the sun is turned, and you can actually tell the sun is brighter. There's more sun rays. So we are downloading more information and we're getting into a golden age. So it'll take about 3.5 years before the old Kali Yuga totally expires and we get into a full golden age, basically.
That means we're going to live in utopia in 3 years.
If you want to call it utopia.
So earlier you were hinting at not hinting at you were pointing out the importance of thinking, of increasing our thinking abilities. And when Mike was asking, what is the thing that we could do, now that we are at this turning point, and you were saying, the best thing to do is, to increase our thinking abilities, and you were talking about creation and about that creation was that through thinking creation happened.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, I see the potential that we have, our intellectual potential, Like if I look at us as holistic beings, so we are physical beings, we are emotional beings, we are intellectual beings, and we are also spiritual beings at the same time. And so I feel, and that even if you look at the chakra system, at the energy centers in the body, it is not without reason that the head, is on top. So our thinking abilities, are certainly probably the ability that can most enhance, or that is important, and then that should have its place in the realm of all other levels that we have, and that we can expand our potential in. However, when you were saying the creator, the universe, life, created through thinking, then I feel that before thinking, the beingness or the isness would have to be there in the first place. So for me, I make a distinction between thinking and between beingness. And when you were talking in the beginning of the show about downloading, my question would have been, do you see a difference between thinking and the thinking process and the downloading, or I would call it the knowing, which is, you said, there's a first-hand experience through our senses, but our senses also can be very deceptive, and our senses obviously are linked to the reality and are limited because we are limited beings. So the limited abilities of our body, of our emotions, and even of our thinking capacity as well, which is limited, which is, we are basically a limited expression of that which is unlimited. So that which is unlimited, I see it as something that is inside of us, that is expressing itself through us, but the thinking capacity that we have is certainly one of the highest expressions that we can have, but being has to be before thinking, because before the thinking ever came into play, there has to be a being as a isness that was before. I'm not sure if that's something, if I was able to bring that across clear.
And I understand your thought. And when it comes to being, what is being? You see, when God, I usually use God, but I don't like using it, it's creative. We go into levels. Now we'll go into levels of existence, So by virtue of 1D, 2D exists, and by virtue of 2D, 3D exists, and 3D, 4D, and so on. And the higher you go, the more pure you are. So when you look at the highest point, which is the ninth point or ninth consciousness or ninth dimension, that's that's absolute purity. That's where there is nothingness. That's why they say God is nothing. God is silence. So God is just absolute silence. That's why he said in the Bible, if you want to experience me, be silent and you'll know that I'm God. Or even the Hindus, you'll see they're going to a mantra, or they just go into a silence. That's being still. That is being, you're in that one moment. Now, if you look at the book of Thomas, which is missing in the Bible, it tells you exactly how to create your thinking. It tells you still your mind, keep your mind still, and use your mind to think and connect it with your heart, which is the center part of everything. And that way you can create. That's missing in the Bible, but that's exactly how you're supposed to create. So yes, you're very right that in the beginning, there was the being. That's why he was called the great mind. He's a being. They're all compassed. They're all one. And he's the one who thought of the alpha and omega. He thought of the neutrinos. He thought of everything, because without thought, there's nothing that can exist. So he thought about everything. That's not sure. And that's one way you can know that that creation happened, because without thinking, nothing can ever exist. And we're just a product of his thinking. That's why he made us in his own image and likeness in our minds, so that we can think like him and create like him, because we're just like him. We are little gods. He's a creator and we are the co-creators. So if we can use our mind to think, we can be able to create. That's why ancients say, still your mind and think, and you'll be able to create. Or thinking is creation, thinking is things. But thinking is the most important thing of everything. first of all, you are you. And if you still yourself, once you're in that point of stillness, you're in the presence of God, because God is stillness, God is silence, God is nothingness. Then now you're in a state ready to think and create. You see, so you're very right. Yes, in the beginning there was a being who is a great mind, who thought about all these things.
So, in the context of the different yugas, the different ages that are influenced, by darkness, by light, so those would be collective experiences. However, there, there, I would argue there always have been those beings who have achieved or have maintained that state that you were just describing, and so there is possibilities and there is ways of holding that state within you, although you're amidst the darkness, and but you keeping the light. So while the yugas, I'm not sure, like, how do you see that? Is it something that collectively, okay, we're in a dark yuga, we're in Kali yuga, that means everybody is in darkness, everybody is drawn back, people are not functioning at the highest level? Or is that the majority or most people under that influence? However, there is people who are able to retain the
Very beautifully said. Because if you look at the context right now of humanity, is you'll see the mass consciousness is in a what? Is in a mask, because they are being controlled, they are being directed. But there are those few of us, or few of that's why they say there'll be a many among the few and few among the many, who will remain still with their God mind or natural mind, who will be able to see the truth. That's why it was called revelation, the truth to come out. That's why it was called apocalypse by the minds. So for us who remain in our true senses, in our true right mind, and we are not being controlled, one very important thing that we have to understand is that one mind can change 99,000 people. So 1, 2, 3, 4 minds, multiply that by 99,000 people. A good concept is what you guys are doing right here. How many people are you affecting with your minds? You see? So the thinking is very powerful. So if your thinking is structured and straight and you're not being mind controlled, you will have an effect on the next person, because you'll be able to help them out. And that is how we're going to get a lot of these people out of the mind control. And that is what is the most important thing about this Kali Yuga and the golden age. We're the ones who actually, I don't want to say we were chosen, but you are some of the people who will change these people. You're the chosen ones, the ones who will get them out of darkness.
He said we're like Neo from the Matrix.
If you look at it, you're like Neo from the Matrix, basically, because you're the ones, you see, the ones who will change these people, because half of the people out there don't even have the information. They're very misinformed. So you're right, it's a mass consciousness, but there are those of us who retain the lights. Very key words that you use, retain the light. The light is still burning in us. And that light, we have to share it out with other people so that we can bring them out of the darkness. Because if not, a lot of these people are just going to go into whatever they're going to go into, which is not a very pretty place, because you can see where they're being led.
And on your particular journey, how do you see you going forward? Is that, are you going to, shine your light just by being in beingness and by being you, or are you, do you have a particular, I don't even want to say agenda, do you have like a way, do you have a teaching, do you have a way of affecting others in a structured way, or are you taking it in what kind of, in what way do you take it? Is that like a mission that you see yourself going, or is it something that happens naturally as you go along?
Oh yeah. For me, I've taken it as a lifelong mission. I gave up everything in my life just to be able to follow this cause and to try and help humanity. And it's a very long story, but I've gone through the ringer with the United States government, and it's just been a whole mess because of this right here. Because I'm a big believer if you read the Bible, the book of Revelation says very well that the big Babylon is going to convince all the other countries to go with her. Now, the big Babylon is United States of America, has confused all other countries to wear a mask, simply because after the mask, they want to let you have a 666, mark of the beast. Without a mask right now, you can buy, you can go to the bank, you can do these things. So when they take the mask off and give you a 666, the people who don't want to have the mark of the beast are going to have to figure a way out, because then they won't be able to buy and fly and all those things. And that's what the COVID-19 certificate will be.
Well, we have Freedom Airlines, so there's some movement towards.
Eventually, they'll start capping all those. They'll cap all those things basically, because they want to make sure everyone is under that control concept of.
But they can't do it in 3 years, and you say in 3 years.
Oh no, not in 3 years. But those are the hard 3 years that you'll see a lot. You can see right now a lot of mergers. A lot of companies are merging, and if you look at the players who are taking over these merged companies, are just the same players from the other companies. So it's a matter of they'll merge all these things and they'll force us. They'll try and force us into a situation. Not to say they're not those people who will resist and companies that will resist, but those are the companies that we will form or companies we will work with. And that's one other thing I'm doing is my main thing is also to try and get into egalitarian communities whereby people come and get together and grow their food where they know where their food is coming from, because half of society doesn't know where food is coming from. They just go to the store and buy it and eat it, not knowing it's laden with GMO and nanotechnology. So the more you know where your food is coming from, the more we create societies where people are more peaceful, more tolerant. That is the future of society, because as we can see, everything else will collapse. Once everything else collapses, then what will we be left with? That's why we have to start creating our own communities, basically.
And there's big opportunities in that collapse and in that chaos, right? So there's
Yes.
the opportunity of rebuilding it, not the way they would like, to reset the game, but the way, it's supposed to be and the way it is, everybody can benefit from it. And amidst this situation, do you see, because you have been around, different countries, different places, you have experienced, many countries, different people, as far as I can pick up. Do you see particular opportunities? Do you see particular places, countries that where people of like mind, come together, where it might be less of a rougher ride for the next years to come, or would you suggest people to stay where they are and make a stand and shine their light where they are right now? What is your take on that?
My take on that is, you know what, we can all try and move to a new place and try and start egalitarian communities, but how about the place that you are? And you're very right. Some of us have to take a stand and start creating those communities where we are. Unfortunately, for some of us, had to move and go somewhere else. But from the countries I've traveled in is I've seen people waking up right now and people realizing that, you know what, I'll not be able to get the food like I used to get it. So they're more pivoting into farming or into other different things of production. So if people can start creating those communities, even where they're, then other people will start copying them and those communities will flourish. But that's the biggest thing. I mean, we have to, you see, they say the new norm because they want the new norm, but we have to change. We don't want the new norm. We have to change to our normal, not their new norm, but our normal.
I was going to ask about, you'd said that I am. And I feel like in a lot of ways, when people meet each other, they usually ask, like, what do you do? And we've started, certainly within kind of the, some of the circles, like autonomy is one of the groups that we are all a part of. We ask people, why do you do what you do? But when someone asks you, who are you? what is your response? What would you say? I am what?
That took a while for me to understand. And once I understood it, I got in the car and I got into a very big argument with the policeman because he stopped me and he asked me, "Who are you?" And I told him, "I am who I am." And he kept asking me and I kept telling him the same thing. And when I went to court, they asked me, "Who are you?" And they said, "I am who I am," because that's who I am. Basically, everything else is just something that has been given to me. And that's how I started fighting for my sovereignty, for my freedoms. And when someone asks you, "Who are you?" it's not a question where you just answer immediately. You have to go within and think and ask yourself, who am I really? Because half of our lives we live because of what our parents told us or what our parents have instilled in us. Because the Jews say, "Give me a child between the age of 0 to 7 and I'll show you what kind of a man he is."
I thought those are Jesuits.
The Jesuits.
Right, the Jews. I think Jews, Jesuits, man.
The
But yeah,
Jesuits said, like,
thing-
give me a child from between 1 and 6, I believe, and basically that is the age. If they have control over the child during that period, they will determine, the
Who they think they are.
the
Correct.
turnout of that person. Yeah.
Correct, and that's very true. Because then, when we're between the age of 0 to 7, we just press record. We're just recording everything in our environment. Then at the age of 7 and upwards, we start playing out what we are recording. So if we can be able to change that, then we start getting our freedoms back. If you look at our children, they don't have freedom. We're doing the same thing over and over that our parents did to us and their parents did to them. We're not giving them the autonomy to make decisions. We're just leading them into the same hole we were dealt. So it's a mindset that has to change completely. And for them, it's a little bit tougher because artificial intelligence is taking over their life. All children on cell phones, all children on iPads. So even trying to regress them back just to thinking about the I am is going to be tough, but that's where the parents come in. But the parents also have to know who they are.
And that question,
Alrighty.
who are you? Often, especially with those kind of questions, with that question, it is maybe the answer to that question is less important than asking the question.
Very true.
Because
Very
who are
true.
you? I am that I am. I am that I am.
I am who I am. Yeah.
So just asking yourself that question. Maybe,
Asking yourself that question is very important. And
That is
actually,
the journey.
there's one great man who asked himself that question. His name was Jesus. He asked him. That's why he called himself "I am who I am." When the Romans asked him, he said, "I am who I am," because he did not subscribe to all those names that they were giving him and all the stuff they were telling him. So he said, "I am who I am." And usually it really gets people annoyed when you tell them that.
Well, did we have any comments or questions from the audience? It seems like we've covered a whole heck of a lot of topics, and I can't believe that nobody was it just that fascinating a conversation?
Yeah, they were all just
They're
like,
sitting baffled. No, I haven't seen any commenters yet.
Okay, well,
hopefully we can have
This-
you back on
Oh,
another
sure.
topic someday.
Yes.
soon.
Oh, yeah. Whenever I love sharing with you guys. You guys are great minds, actually. And when you ask those questions, that's how my downloads come usually, because I don't have everything. Sometimes you ask me a question and immediately downloads right there. So I appreciate all the questions. Those are amazing questions.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Is there something? What is there like a way? Is there? I don't even want to say technique, but is there a space? Is there something that helps you to get into that space where the downloads come through more easier? Is there like a routine you do, or it just happens out of the blue?
My routine is the sun. See, everything passes through photons, through lights, and all light comes from the sun. So if you really do want to get any information, the sun is the best place to get it. So I tell people start sun gazing a little bit, because then that sun is hitting your eyes and it's transferring. Your pineal gland is actually is actually looks like your eyes. It has rods and cones just like your eyes and uses light just like your eyes. So that's why it's called the enlightenment and illumination of the pineal gland. So the more you sit in light, especially right now in the sun, because we're having all these cosmic rays. And remember, I talked about the Christ consciousness that is upon us. So the more you sit in the sun, the more you'll absorb, and you'll start feeling it. You'll just start getting information and knowledge coming down, especially if you're in a state of fasting.
Is there a process? I know there's different ones. There's the 21-day process, and I think there's a book written about that as well. Did you follow any of that, or did you just go?
No, I started sun gazing in the morning, then sun gazing in the evening. Then as time went by, my eyes became just accustomed to the sun. So right now I can look at the sun for up to 6, 7, 8 hours and just download.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are you
So
you're barefoot as well?
Yeah.
You're doing it barefoot, like standing on the ground?
It's the best way to do it because you're grounded on Mother Earth, so she's giving you the magnetic side, and the sun is the electric side. So you're getting both sides of all ends. And very key thing that you just said is that people don't stand on the ground anymore, but your feet are just like your hands. If you want to touch and if you want to feel something or know something, you'll touch it with your hand, and information will be passed to your brain through your hand. So if you want to know about the ground, you want to know about the leaves, you want to know about plants, you want to know about the soil, step on it and information will be passed to your brain simply.
Yeah, here where we're staying in Bontville, most people don't wear shoes.
So I ground a lot. I lay down on the ground a lot. Eating seeds is very important, because seeds contain all information. People think about the plant, but where does the plant come from? From the seed. So if you eat the seed, you're actually eating the whole plant itself. So learning about your seed, eating seeds, there's so much information that has been hidden from us that when you start looking at it, you're like, oh my God, this is so simple. I don't know how we've never been doing this,
And we do have a comment. Colleen is saying, we are that captivated, Mike.
Lovely.
Right, well, we'll bring Red back on in the future because I would love to ask him some more questions on other topics. But I think that Kali Yuga as well. And
yeah.
Hi there, young man.
We have a visitor here who cannot sleep.
Oh,
handsome boy. How old is he?
Hold on.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello. How
Our
old are
friend
you?
wants to know how old you are, Luca. How old are you? Is that 3, 4?
Oh my God, you're a big boy.
4.
Oh, good. These are the next generation. These are the ones we have to preserve their pineal gland, because if we preserve their pineal gland, we'll not see what we're seeing from these leaders right now, because they're coming in a different way. They're coming already downloaded with information. So we just have to keep it open, and they'll transform us. Beautiful boy. Handsome.
And I, Luca.
Yes,
There
you
you
are,
go.
Luca. And this is Red. He's our friend.
Okay. Sag gute Nacht. Sag tschüss.
Hi.
Hi,
Bye.
Luca. Nice
Bye.
meeting you. Oh, he's a handsome man. Handsome man.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so I think we've put in an hour with the show, and usually that means we've done enough for the day and for the week. This has been a interesting, very interesting discussion. Man, we've covered a whole lot of different areas, and really appreciate Red, you coming in and giving us all the information you have, and certainly want to thank you for that, as well as our audience. Thank you for your time and attention, of course. And hopefully this was very helpful and useful to you. And it's got you asking some more questions about who you are and what you might be able to do for yourself and for other people around you.
And what age do
That's
you want
it.
to live in?
What age do we live in?
Thank you
But
very
with that
much.
said, I
Really
guess we'll
appreciate it.
say goodbye. Does anybody else got anything to add?
Just that I'm looking forward to to chatting again, and
Oh,
keeping the exchange going, and it is marvelous, and it's great to know that there are beings right here who have awareness and are conscious of what is going on, and are using their very potential to bring in the light and to light all those other lights, because just like you said, one little candle can light thousands of other candles. It doesn't have to be a big fire. One tiny candle can do that already, and if
absolutely.
it's a bunch of us getting together, then it certainly will make a difference.
Absolutely. That's well said. And there's nothing more to add to such a beautiful ending. So I thank you guys very much. And hopefully we can yik yak a little bit more later, sometime later.
Very well said.
Awesome.
Thank you, and bye bye everybody.
So long, everyone.